Good morning. Welcome back. My name's Rebecca, and today's video is going to be for beginner embroiderers. Those of us that have been doing it for 30 and 40 and 50 and sometimes 60 years think we know the answers to the hard questions, the things that frustrate beginners. I've been doing it for more than 70 years, and I still every once in a while find a little nugget of information. I thought this would be my nugget of information video for beginner embroiderers. So I have quite a few supplies that I want to explain to you. Not that you need all of it, but it's what I use. And I'm going to turn the camera down now to my hands, so you won't see this smiling face again for. So the first thing, because I have a whole pile of things here for you, are the scissors. Everyone has scissors around their house, I know. Embroidery scissors tend to be very pointed and very sharp, and so I would protect the ends, or protect you from the ends, by putting it in something if possible. So these two are what I call fussy scissors, because this has a little curve to the end. This does not, but it will cut right up to the very end. So if you want to get in little corners, I call them fussy scissors. There's no real name for them, I don't think. So I like these just because they fit my hand well and I can find them. The small ones tend to get sort of hidden a little. I bought these because of the shape, but in actual fact, I like the fact that the tips are dull. So I sit and embroider in my Lazy Boy, and quite often I will rest this on my chest, which is a lot safer than the pointed ones. As for needles, a variety. So everything, and I think I'll do a whole video just on needles, but the kind that have the elongated eye are much easier to thread. They are also they don't get a lot thicker at the top compared to some. The real tiny ones I have trouble holding. My hands don't like them. So they end up just getting more and more because I basically don't use them. These ones are actually blunt tipped. So if you're doing cross stitch, you want a blunt tipped end. If you're doing embroidery, you want a sharp end. Get that out of the way. They do bend, or at least on me, they do, and sometimes break. And so something I just want to pop in the middle of talking here is, if your needle breaks, please don't throw it away. The garbage man gets injured. So just save an old prescription bottle and put your broken needle in that. And when you've got several in there and you go to the mall, in the washroom in the mall, there is always a Sharps. It's called a Sharps container for people with diabetes and whatnot that have to dispose of their needles. Just dump it in the Sharps and then use it again. But please don't just throw it away. That's just my opinion. As far as threading the needle goes, I just got this, which is a very small needle threader, which works well. This is a hummingbird needle threader, which I like the fact that this, well, so does this, protects you from the sharp edge. You just put it through the eye of the needle, hook the thread on it, and pull it, and it threads your needle for you. There are other ways as well of threading needles, and if you're having difficulty, which is one of the comments that we get quite often, is that I just can't seem to thread my needle. It's making me crazy. As far as thread is concerned, anything that you can thread through a needle can be used. Now, this is crochet cotton. This is rayon thread, just regular thread, but as you can see, it's very, very fine. I do a lot of small embroidery, so I need fine, and I like the shine to it too. This is pearl cotton, which should not be separated. There's more than one size you buy as opposed to separating it. And then there's your good old regular DMC or Anchor or whatever brand you choose of embroidery thread. This is not something that you'll need at the beginning, but these are forceps, and I do a lot of weird embroidery. I do a lot of, you know, like this kind of thing where it's got cardboard in it, and I have to pierce through the cardboard. And so in order to do that, you start it through, and then you put your well, where's the needle? Let's do it. So you go through like such, and then you use your forceps to clamp onto it, and then when you pull, you're not having to squeeze and pull, because that really hurts your hands. So I have arthritis in both hands, so I find the forceps handy. Not that you need to, especially if you're young, you probably think I'm just being silly. And then storage is a matter of either pin cushions, of which I have 4, plus this, plus my magnetic. In case you haven't guessed, we have 2 hobbies going on here. One is embroidery, and one is collecting supplies or buying supplies. That's my favorite, almost my favorite part. So definitely you'll end up, maybe not, maybe you're not like me. This is, I know I'm going to get in trouble for saying this from some of you, but this is a heat. It is dissolved by heat. It's a pen that when you write, you can draw on fabric and then embroider and then run a hot hair dryer over, and it disappears. Now the problem with this is that it's called friction pen. The problem with that is that if it gets cold, sometimes the line will come back, and it does leave a sort of a chemical trace behind it. So obviously you're supposed to cover it up with your embroidery, but if you don't and it gets cold, this line can come back. I can't live without this. I no longer use kits. I design most of my own stuff, and I draw with it, and if I don't like it, I erase it with heat, and then I draw some more. The other thing that I have that you may or may not choose to have, and this is a really big one, and I don't know where any of my small ones are, but I do have smaller size ones. Anything that has lines on it. So this is a quilter's ruler, so you can do, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch to make square geometric lines. This is the same idea with some curved lines thrown in, and I got this in the thrift store for $2. This one has both metric and imperial inches and meter or centimeters, I guess. And I often will use this just to make sure I have a square corner. And again, it has the same thing. You don't need all this equipment to start by any means, but as you gather, I just want you to know your options. So now it's time to actually start talking about what I came here to talk about. So tips for tips for beginners. I'm going to start with the thread that you use. Do not buy the dollars. I buy a lot of stuff at dollar store. Do not buy the dollar store floss. It is meant for braiding bracelets, and it doesn't work for this. So I buy DMC or Anchor. Sometimes I'll, as a matter of fact, that's another comment. I shop in dollar stores and I shop in thrift stores because this is an expensive hobby, and you can find a lot of things like, you know, this was 50 cents in a thrift store, and it might have a little bit missing, but I don't think it does. So when you get a brand new one, it looks like this with the DMC or Anchor, whatever, on the top, and this is the barcode with the number on the bottom of what it is. So when you try to draw out your floss to use, there's an end at the bottom and there's an end at the top. If you don't want it to tangle, which is our goal in life, is to not have tangles and knots, find the one at the bottom. So if this was missing and it looks like this, you still know which is the bottom because the number is at the bottom, okay? So the length that most places advise for beginners is, you know, from your finger to your elbow. That to me is just doesn't make any sense, makes me crazy. So I go from the tip of my finger to the tip of my nose, and then I double that. So see if I can, so from there all the way to there, and then I'm going to fold that in half, and I'm actually going to double that because, and I will show you why in a moment. So this is double fingertip to nose. So you cut that, and the next step is to take one single thread of floss out. So if you can see at the top end here, so this is just my whole thing here. If you separate this, eventually you'll be able to find a single one. Yes? Take that single one and then just gently grasp this. Okay, so that looks like it's going to tangle. We'll straighten it out. Gently grasp that single one and keep on pulling. And you will get a single piece of floss. If you want, so this is going to make 2, and I usually embroider with 2 strands. If you want 4 strands, you do it the same thing again, and then you lay them side by side to get 4. So I'm now going to thread a needle. So one of the tricks, I don't know if it's a trick, one of the suggestions is from Sarah Humphrey, who is my go-to person on YouTube. Sarah Humphrey is in Britain, and she's gone to the Royal Academy of Embroidery, and I've been embroidering since I was 7, so more than 70 years. And I stopped for a long time. It was boring. It was not anything I wanted to do. And then I started watching Sarah Humphrey, and I realized there are things I had no idea were possible. And so this is one of her things I learned from her. So you take your thread and you pinch it down in your non-dominant hand, and you take your eye of your needle and line it up with that and push down. and then pull this until the ends are equal. You now have 2 strands of floss to embroider with that are the right length, that won't fall off the needle. One of the complaints, one of the questions is, how do I keep it from sliding out of the needle? It's making me crazy. So this is my answer to that. So to do that, I have in my dominant hand my needle and the thread. And I'm going to 1, 2, 3 times around, and then I'm going to pinch that wrap and pull the needle through the wrap. And you now have a very tiny little knot that isn't going to make a big clump underneath what you're embroidering. If you can't do that, if the like I chose a reasonably sized eye, if you have a tiny little eye on your needle, that's when you would either trap the end in your beeswax, push down and pull it out a few times, and then clip it to make sure that it's, and now this is actually really quite stiff and it's not going to fray as easily. Either that or this one, which leaves it just the same thing. There's little slots down the side, just hold it down and pull it through a couple times, and it's almost easy. It's at least predictable that this will be now much easier to thread your needle with. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is hoops. And new embroiderers ask the question, do I have to use a hoop, or should I use a hoop? My answer is 99% of the time is yes. So all of these hoops, got 2 the same size there. All of these hoops are wrapped, which is my next hint. Simply take it apart. You can use twill tape, you can use a cut up old t-shirt, you can use anything that's not shiny and slippery. Just hold it down, wrap it around the whole thing, and then when you sew it, I can't find where I sewed it. See here? You sew it on the inside, not out here, in here, because if you sew it down out here, you'll produce a bump, which will then release the tension and on that part of your hoop. Other than hoops, there is, if you're start doing a bigger piece, there's something like this, which you can get in all different kinds of sizes, and I have 2 of them, and my other one is wrapped, but it's got something in it, so I can't show it to you. Pop them off. These come apart, so you can store them a little easier. You just lay your fabric over top, and then snap it in place, and away you go. The last thing is this, which is used for if you don't mind having a hole in your fabric, because this takes thumbtacks. I see I didn't remove all of them. So you lay your fabric on, do the 2 corners, pull this out, do that corner, pull this out, do that corner, and then every couple of inches around. People who do canvas work use this exclusively. if you're doing something small in the middle and you don't mind having the fabric wasted, I guess, you can use this. However, this does not fit in a stand, and this does not fit in a stand. The hoops will fit in a hoop stand. And that's the other thing that, and I, for the life of me, can't find it to show you. So, let's see. Oh, the other thing is, because this is so expensive to do, I use a lot of thrift store stuff. This is my preferred method of storage as well, because they're dollar store. So like something like this is meant for knitting and crocheting, but if you want texture, it makes great texture. And you simply tack it down with a couching stitch, which you have to go to Sarah's to look up what a couching stitch if you don't know. I like texture in what I make. Let's see if I've got something here. So for example, this is watercolored, and then this at the bottom is embroidery thread, and this is, it's a mixture of pearl cotton and regular cotton, but this isn't. This is embroidery thread. This is actually ribbon of some kind, and this is wool. So if you want textures and different looks like I do, then you use different products, and it doesn't have to be embroidery floss. It can be almost anything. Anything that you can tack down or put through the eye of a needle. And in some cases, I will go to the thrift store and I will buy a scarf that I like the color of, and unravel it and use and use the wool from the scarf. So I'm off track, down a little rabbit hole there. I'm sorry. So let's find something that I can actually embroider on here. Plain cotton is my choice. I don't spend the money on linen and expensive things. As a matter of fact, I go to the thrift store and I'll buy a plain, or either a thrift store, and I'll buy a plain pillowcase, cotton, or I'll go to Walmart and I'll buy a single bed sheet in white cotton, flat, and wash it, throw it in the washer, throw it in the dryer, and cut it up, and you got enough fabric for a long time for very little money. So I just did that quickly without explaining. So you lay it on, you push the top down, and because it's wrapped, when I pull it tightly, it stays where you pull it, and you want this to be tight. You want this to, like, if you drop a penny on it, it'll bounce tight if you can. So the next thing is tip. I'm just yammering here. The next tip is how to start your embroidery without leaving a big clump of whatever. So I'm going to just draw a line. So for this one, I would come up from the bottom, and I'm going to find that knot. That knot would pull right through. It's so small it would pull right through. So just go over a couple stitches and go back down, pull that, but not this, and then find separate the two. I can do this. You can do this. There we go. And then as it pulls down, that is now strong. It won't come out. It's really quite flat. This tail, you can certainly cut off. The only way this would come undone is if you tried to cut it off right at the knot could undo. I worry about it later. So basically that's, you know, how to start with that kind of knot. If you're worried about your back and you don't want to have a knot on the back, let's take it back out. By the way, these things do not stay sharp. I've wasted more money buying these. They're very handy, but they don't stay sharp. So I'll pull that through. So another way, if you want to have something that you're going to see the back of, like a hanky or a tea towel or something that you don't want to see the back of, take this and instead of threading one through, thread the bend, thread this part through. Same way, pinch it and aim the needle. So now we're going to go in and out. So the back's got nothing. And we're going to find that loop. Make sure that you don't go through the thread, but rather through the loop. So this now has, it's attached. There's no knot. The back looks fine. However, when you start doing your embroidery, if you, as it gets short, this moves up, it'll fall off. I do not use this method unless I'm doing something really tiny, like this, because I don't want any knots anywhere. So occasionally I will use this method, but I don't like the fact that it can fall off the needle. So that's two ways that I know of. However, Sarah Humphrey has another idea. So I will now show you the right, not my way, but the right way, according to Sarah Humphrey. And I don't know why I don't do this more often. I'm just, you get into a habit, I suppose. Okay, so I'm going to thread a single one through. So in this one, I like this one because I can't drop this in my lazy boy and then sit on it. It's always attached. Not yet. And that's what causes knots and tangles, because each time you use the needle, it rotates a little bit. So when it's doing that, you'll get a knot. So you just hold your piece up and you let it hang down and until it doesn't do that anymore. And then you can go ahead and sew again. The other way of doing it, so let's make it tangly again. Okay, so it's wanting to tangle. The other way to stop it from tangling is to use your thumb and tension on your thumb. So if I go like that, it's usually when it gets down here, close to the end, that it tangles. So you can use your thumb. You can use a big old needle. See how that's going round and round? It wants to tangle. It wants to make a knot. So logically you get rid of that, but if you can't, all right. So make sure that the lines end up. So this time, instead of that tight little knot, we're going to wrap it 3 or 4 times around my finger and make a big clumpy knot. This is called a waist knot. This is Sarah Humphrey's way of doing it. So you start not on your pattern, but over there from the top. You come up at the edge of your pattern and you make 2 tiny little. So I'm doing them right just a few threads over from the last one. And this is instead of a knot. So from the front, if you ignore that, it looks like that. From the back, oh, that's going to go away. Okay, so let's cut off that. Let's cut off the waist knot. Usually I wait. I don't usually do it at the beginning. And now I can cut this off. So this is now on, and it's a smart way to do it. It's the right way to do it. It's just more effort than what it's an extra step, and I'm lazy. What can I say? So that's starting your embroidery. 3 choices. Let's see. Let's talk about when it starts to tangle. So every time you, and I'm not worried about what stitch I'm doing. I'm just doing whatever. Every time you do a stitch, see how this is not tangling? Can you see how if I hang it, it's not going round and round? By the time I get to the end of this thing, it will start turning. Well, I hope that was helpful to you. There's so many stitches and so many things to tell you. I specifically did not make a video full of stitches because there are thousands of videos out there. And again, I recommend Sarah Humphrey if you want to look up how to do a certain stitch. It was more a case of, I want you to begin your journey in embroidery without a lot of frustration. And for someone, I mean, people ask questions like, what do I need to start? So I hope that has answered your question. I hope that I think the secret is keeping attention on the fabric within the hoop and keeping tension on your embroidery floss if possible to prevent tangling, because tangling is one of the big frustrations for beginners and for us, for all of us. And I've been doing this such a long time and I still learn new things. So I hope this has been helpful. Please feel free to ask away what you need to know. Thanks for coming. I've enjoyed being with you, and we'll see you on the flip side. Bye.